The message appeared on Margaret Dawson's phone just before midnight. It was not a message asking how she was doing. It was not a simple goodnight wish. It was just a photograph. A brand new sports car was parked in front of her son's house. Beneath the image was a short message. "Mom, can you cover this month's payment?" Margaret stared at the screen. She did not reply right away. Instead, she opened her banking app. The numbers that appeared made her heart sink. For years, money from her retirement fund had been quietly slipping away like water through her fingers. All of it had gone to Ryan and his wife, Nicole. From the outside, they looked like a successful family. Weekend getaways, elegant dinners, expensive purchases constantly showcased on social media. But behind those perfect photos was a truth no one else could see. Whenever they faced a problem, they turned to Margaret, and she always helped. She paid unexpected bills. She covered living expenses. She rescued them from short-term financial trouble more times than she could count. Ryan always promised to pay her back. Nicole always insisted it was only temporary. But the years passed. Not a single dollar ever returned. What hurt Margaret most was not the money. It was the realization that everything had become expected. They no longer saw her support as help. They saw it as her responsibility. And Margaret had no idea that within just a few days, an ordinary dinner would expose the truth she had been blind to for years. A truth powerful enough to change this family forever. 3 days later, Ryan had called his mother more than 20 times. Margaret never answered. For the first time in years, she no longer felt responsible for fixing someone else's problems. But across town, everything was beginning to unravel. Ryan and Nicole quickly realized that the financial support they had always relied on was gone. Bills kept arriving in the mailbox. Car payments, credit card balances, personal loans. Everything was piling up faster than they could handle. Nicole tried to maintain her composure around friends. She continued posting smiling photos on social media as if nothing had changed. But inside their home, the arguments were becoming more frequent and more intense. Ryan was beginning to face a frightening reality. For years, they had never truly lived within their means. One afternoon, Margaret received a phone call from an old friend who had once worked in the banking industry. The woman hesitated before speaking. "There is something you need to know." What Margaret heard next sent a chill through her body. Her name had appeared on several of Ryan's recent loan applications, not as an official guarantor, but as someone whose financial standing had been used to strengthen the family's credibility. Margaret immediately began investigating every document, every public record, and then the truth came to light. Ryan and Nicole were drowning in an enormous amount of debt, personal loans, credit card balances, vehicle financing, luxury vacations, expensive purchases. Everything had been funded with borrowed money. That evening, Margaret sat down across from her son. Ryan no longer carried the confidence he once had. He lowered his head when his mother asked a simple question. "How long were you planning to keep living like this?" The room fell silent. Because for the first time, no one had an answer. 2 months after that confrontation, Ryan and Nicole moved out of the guest house located behind Margaret's property. On the day the last vehicle rolled down the driveway, an unusual sense of peace settled over the garden. No more arguments in the middle of the night. No more complaints about money. No more feeling responsible for carrying the weight of someone else's life. A few weeks later, Margaret rented the guest house to an older man named Daniel. He was a retired firefighter, polite, calm, and always punctual with every payment. For the first time in many years, Margaret felt that her home was truly a place she could return to and enjoy. As autumn slowly passed, her savings began to recover. Plans she had postponed for years finally started becoming reality. She joined community groups, reconnected with old friends, and began planning the coastal vacation she had been dreaming about for so long. Then, on a quiet afternoon, her phone rang. It was Ryan. His voice sounded different. There were no demands, no excuse, only exhaustion and sincerity. Ryan admitted that he had been wrong. He had allowed dependence to become a way of life. He had taken his mother's sacrifices for granted. He also confessed that his marriage to Nicole had come to an end. Once the money disappeared, the cracks that had existed for years finally became impossible to ignore. After the call ended, Margaret stood quietly by the window. The afternoon sunlight bathed the garden in a warm, golden glow. And in that moment, she realized something important. Loving your family does not mean carrying the consequences of every choice they make. Sometimes, the greatest gift a mother can give her child is allowing them to take responsibility for their own life. Sometimes the hardest lesson in life is realizing that love without boundaries can turn into permission for others to take advantage of you. Margaret spent years believing she was helping her family, only to discover she was carrying burdens that were never hers to bear. In the end, choosing herself was not selfish, it was necessary. What would you have done in Margaret's situation? Would you have continued helping, or would you have walked away sooner? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story touched you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more powerful family drama stories with unexpected twists and meaningful life lessons.